I am Bonneau Ansley, an active real estate agent and founder of Ansley Real Estate, Christie's International, an award-winning Atlanta-based real estate brokerage that did over $3 billion in sales last year.
And I'm Chris Tuff, one of the first advertisers to work directly with Mark Zuckerberg in 2006. I've since gone on to be the best-selling author of The Millennial Whisperer and Save Your Asks.
And this is Brokering Billions. This podcast is about uncovering the hustle, perseverance, mindset, and tricks that are used by the top real estate agents in the country to help you take your business to the next level. In today's episode of Brokering Billions, we're talking to my friend Thad Wong. Thad and I have become friends over the last 5 years and now are partnered in a couple of different real estate ventures. And he started off as the #1 real estate agent back in the early 90s. And now he is the co-CEO of Christie's International Real Estate.
Thad's going to talk to us a little bit about how he divides and conquers, playing to his strengths with his co-CEO, Mike Golden. He's also going to talk a little bit about marketing. Why is love the backbone of his whole company, as well as much, much more? Please welcome Thad to the podcast.
Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Here we go, guys. Sitting here in Ansley Real Estate, Christie's International headquarters, right here in the ATL. I'm Bonneau Ansley.
And I'm Chris Tuff.
We're brokering billions. Okay, guys. Today, we've got a very special guest. I call Thad Wong my partner and my good friend. And very interesting. Thad and I met probably 4 or 5 years ago. We started a friendship. Next thing you know, 3 years ago, we became partners, where Thad's my partner here at Ansley Real Estate. And now we're partners in Christie's International Real Estate. And that's somebody I really, really look up to and have looked up to for a long time.
I love it. So Thad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for those nice words, Bonneau. I feel the same. I love you too, man. You're the best.
Well, look, Thad was the #1 broker in Chicago, dating back kind of, late 1990s, early 2000. And his partner and my partner, Mike Golden, I think was #2. And somehow they decided, hey, there's a better way to do this. And I felt the same when I left my old brokerage when we started Ansley 7 or 8 years ago. Thad, kind of take us back when you were a rock star agent in Chicago, and what led you to kind of make the transition to start this incredible brokerage at Properties back in 2000?
I met Mike in 96 when I first got my license, and we officially became partners in 97 at a firm. And so sometimes he was 1 and I was 2, and I was 1 and he was 2. We separate our numbers so that we'd always be 1 and 2 in Chicago. And in 2000 came, ironically, it wasn't a natural choice. We had a developer client, who gave us an ultimatum. He said, either you open your own firm or you go to a different brokerage, but I am not going to be working with you anymore if you're at the brokerage you are at right now, because our broker owner was also a developer and there was some conflict of interest. They had bought land next to each other and he didn't like that so much. So when Mike and I thought about it, there was one company back in the day, it's no longer around, called Canning It Straight. And it was the best of the best. We loved that company. But then we thought, we knew how unappreciated we felt we were at the company we were at. And that being said, we were probably responsible for 70 or 80% of our revenue. So we were developing all of our materials and everything that we needed to grow our business. So we felt like, maybe it would be just better if we opened up our own firm. And we thought, who better people to open up a firm to service real estate agents than real estate agents? And we sold for a few years until it got its wings and it was able to fly and we could just put all of our effort into growing the business. But I think it was incredibly helpful that we were agents, because we knew the things primarily that agents weren't good at. So we started by building the things that agents were not usually very good at, which was consistency, marketing, organization. And we built an infrastructure around content and sharing that would help the agents grow their business. And once they plugged into our systems very early on, they became committed to us because they knew we were working in their best interest to grow their business. Nothing's really different 22 years later. It's the same thesis, is that the agent gets a lot more bang from the company than they put in. And that's not always the case. Oftentimes agents feel like they pay the company more than what they get from the company. I always want the agent to feel like, it's fair. I feel like I pay them a fair amount for what I'm able to get back, and then some. And then they have trust and confidence that we're going to have a plan to unveil more products, more tools, more points of differentiation that help them become number one in their market faster. That's the deal. That's the trade-off, and that's the relationship we have with them.
I love that. I love that. And, I want to dissect this relationship with Mike because, in doing research and listening to some of your interviews, you two seem to be very much yin and yang, right? Like, and, you're more the creative side and he's more the other side of it. And one theme we've seen or heard in a lot of these interviews is just the importance of finding those people on your team, right? That help really offset both your weaknesses and kind of round it out. Talk a little bit about what that kind of the differences between you and Mike and how you divide and conquer in that, and everything that you guys are building.
Yeah, first of all, we call it wing and wong.
Wing and wong.
So Mike's the wing and I'm the wong. But we are two incredibly different people. I mean, we come from very different places. We're interested in incredibly different things. Our wives are incredibly different women. And, if you were to see, we'd have never been friends in high school. He would have always wanted to date my girlfriends, and I would always be stealing his trombone. So yeah, the truth is, if you meet me and Mike, you would think that those guys, I don't understand their friendship. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that even though we are incredibly different people, we value each other equally. And even though we have incredibly different talents, we value those talents even more than the talents we probably house internally, because we can't do that. And that's hard a lot of times. I think in partnerships, you usually have ego, finance, romance, break partners apart. And for our relationship, where we've been partners now for 26 years, 25 years, and we've been through ups, we've been through downs. There are two things. One, there's an incredible amount of trust. Okay. And meaning that it's just the most trusting relationship you'll ever find. There is no question to the amount of trust we have in one another. And the other side is acceptance, accepting that each one of us is doing the absolute best we can do for these things that we're focused on achieving. And once someone's doing the best they're doing, if they win or fail, it's okay, because you knew they gave it their all. So that side of it, that acceptance side of it, and that trust side of it, as far as a relationship, it's almost like the exact same qualities you want in a good marriage. And that's what we have. We don't have to be the same. We don't have to believe the same things. We don't have to, have the skill set, as long as we have a foundation of valuing the other as much, or if not more, than we value ourselves. Trusting and having acceptance in one another and respect for each other. That relationship will last forever. And two people are always going to be doing a lot more than one, but even more than two separate people. So that's really, that's the secret. But also, I always recommend against partnerships, because you have to find the magic partner, and that's really hard. Like, I got crazy lucky and Mike got crazy lucky, but we know we're lucky because other people fail at partnership all the time. There are no 25-year real estate brokerage partnerships that are not blood related. We don't even have a contract. We have a handshake and a hug. You know what I mean? That's far more powerful than a contract that can just bring in attorneys. So we have trust. So that's unbreakable and unbeatable. So that's what makes our partnership, I think, so solid. And it'll be going on forever. I will never find, a better partner. And the same thing with Bonneau. Like, the first time I met with Bonneau and we started talking, I knew Bonneau and I, although we're very different guys from very different places, very different plant families, very different ideas, very different beliefs, but we have some core values. That's the other piece that are just known. Our honor, our integrity, our service, our relationships. Those are the consistent core values in human beings, I think, that are far more important than the extra stuff, the fanfare. Bonneau was the same way. And so, like, Bonneau and I had a situation where I was not aware and I was not clearly thinking when I was communicating. He called me out on it. I said, yeah, you're right. And we had an open conversation. There's no problem. You know what I mean? When you have that level of respect, I think mutual respect in partnerships, they should last forever. Unless it's greed. Once you take those things out of the equation, good people should be able to partner forever, in my opinion.
And so I want to hear, so in terms of specifics, how do you and Mike divide up kind of your areas of expertise? I mean, you're more the marketing and tech side, right? Like, talk a little bit more about that before we move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm like the horse and he's the conductor. I'm like racing, racing, racing. He's like, whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm big on both. I'm big on the innovation. I love marketing. And Mike does a lot of the operations. He handles all the banking, a lot of the finance. Back in the day, he handled a lot of the developers. And he really didn't say whoa, whoa, ever. Actually, probably never even said no.
Yeah.
And that's probably what makes us great partners. But he did keep everything on balance. He made sure that we were financially stable and solvent. We went through the crisis, the downturn, the Great Recession, profitable every single year, unscathed by this. And we just made a lot of really good decisions financially that I attribute to him. And then I did a lot of more of the creative stuff and the pushing of the stuff. And then we have another leader, Joni Meyerowitz, our COO, who did all the integration in our technology and built platform to what it is today. So there's a lot of people kind of building this whole thing. It's not just me and Mike. We got a lot of people working here. But definitely, he does a lot more of the operations, a lot of the finance. I do a lot more of the growth focus and marketing and tech.
I love it.
Thad, I'll tell you, one thing you tell me a lot is if it ain't broke, break it, right? So
Yeah.
going back to agents, like, okay, you did 10 million last year, and if you want to do 10 million again, go ahead and break what you did last year and start new things, because you can't keep in this business consistent with what you did years prior. This business is moving so fast. And what attracted me to you, Thad, is the technology. And when we started Ansley, we were just going through the motions with what everybody else was doing. And I knew that we couldn't grow to the level that I wanted to grow without some great, technology and advances for our agents to be 2 steps ahead of the industry, right? And that's the way that and now Christie's International Real Estate has been doing, is they break it and they try again and they keep making things better and better and better. And for the agents out there that are stuck with what they are doing, you got to start all over every now and then. And I started over every single year to keep trying to double my business and double my business again. So let's talk about that mindset, Thad, for a minute.
Yeah, I think that people are, when they get satisfied because something works, you can do that for a long time, but if you're not growing, you're dying. And so if your job is to service the agent base, and that's really, what does that mean? That means giving the agents product and services to, number one, have a point of differentiation for the consumer that is valuable to make them more likely to close the deal and capture the client. And number two, offer back-end operating systems, which makes it far more efficient for them to operate their business so they can sell more real estate. So when you look at those two things, the consumer facing, which is your sign, your listing presentation, your brochure, your marketing and collateral. If you can imagine having the same brochure for 5 years, like every 2 or 3 years, we literally trash it and try to come up with something better. Same with the sign, always with the listing presentation, but everything we give the consumer, because what does that signal? Well, the agent gives us a portion of their commission. That tells that, hey, we're taking what you're giving us and we're investing and helping you become a better agent, improving your consumer-facing materials and the content in which you present yourself. That's what you have to do. That's your commitment on that side of it from the agent side. I think that's a really big deal. From the company side and breaking it from the efficiency side, that's also as important because we're competing with other firms that are offering technology related products, right? And so we're an independent tech company that builds our own solution. If our own solution is beat by a competitor's, and it's really true that a competitor can offer a technology solution to an agent that's better than ours, that other company is going to have more of a compelling reason to get that agent over other than just paying them more money. Mm-hmm. The only reason one of our competitors can get one of our agents right now is because they're giving them more money. More money can be leads or a higher split or marketing dollars. But that's the only reason an agent's going to leave right now. We have a very good culture. That side of it we haven't talked about. But once you've got all those things, unless you've got market saturation, there's no reason for an agent to ever leave you unless they're getting more money.
So with the technology side, so, most of my background is in kind of the tech world. And one thing that I've found is that a lot of times it's just on whistles, right? Where it's like technology for the sake of getting the sale. And then you get into it and no one really uses it, right? It's just for the sake of the sale or the brochure or whatever it is, right? Talk a little bit about how you're both vetting technology, but then also garnering the adoption with what is a largely traditional group of sellers, right? I mean, you're almost a dichotomy in the business of what you guys are building. And that to me is what's so interesting, right?
Yeah, Thad,
Yeah,
I mean, Platform, which is, the proprietary software and technology that you guys have created that Ansley is run on and many affiliates through Christie's and other companies that are associated with us. Talk about Platform, because Platform is used by 98% of our agents here at Ansley and the same percentage over at and other places that we have.
Yeah, I learned the adoption piece from Caldwell because I did believe there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, that Caldwell had some really good tools, but their adoption was terrible.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, and so we always focused on measuring the adoption. We measured who was using the tech, who wasn't using the tech. We gamified it. We created a lot of programs, but it all started back in, I think, 2001, where I believe we were the first company to manage our agents' databases and send out newsletters. And then we created Just Listed. All these things sound normal now, but I'm talking 20 years ago,
Right.
where the agents trusted us to manage their database and send out on their behalf Just Listed, Just Closed, and monthly newsletters. And so now that evolved into Platform. And so how do you get adoption? You build something that somebody needs and you put it on the system that they use, and you make it incredibly intuitive, like Apple. You use more features on your phone than any other tool that you have. And you use more Apple features because it's very intuitive and it's helpful, even if it gathers just all the news that you're looking for. Same thing on Platform. It's insanely intuitive. And if you don't know what to do, you can click on something and watch a video and it'll tell you how to do it. But I will tell you, most importantly, you have to use it, because the only way you're going to get paid is if you use it. So that's a big thing that companies are afraid to do, is to flick the switch and say, hey, you've got to use this. But because they're afraid to do it because they're afraid it won't be good. So it's a big risk, but if it's good and it's the best, and you can have your agents using a CRM, and it's integrated with marketing tools that auto-populates, that measures the consumer's behavior, that feeds into a consumer-facing milestone that shows them the dates on which are most important to the transaction, and also keeps the agent relevant post-closing, there's no reason for the agent not to use it, because there's nothing better to use. It has to be the best. If there's something better to use, they'll say, I like my old system better. But nobody likes their old flip phone better than, except my mom. It's better than an Apple phone, because if you want tools, convenience, and ease, Apple constantly evolves and constantly changes its software so it stays relevant and it remains the best tool. We have the same commitment with Platform, but it's also adding additional tools to make the agent's life easier, or give them a greater opportunity to expose their brand to the consumer to grow their business. It has to be valuable at the end of the day. It can't be bells and whistles. Bells and whistles are only used during the holidays and your birthday. These have to be functional tools that actually cause a consequential effect in someone's business by either making it easier to operate, helping them grow by expanding the content distribution, which yields greater clients.
Thad, you were way ahead of the game. Even when you named your new company back in 1999 or 2000, you named it the at symbol, right? This is during the .com boom, and nobody knew what at was, right? But they decided to use at everywhere, and I just thought that genius. You're just 2 steps ahead of everybody that way, which is really cool.
That was lucky, I think. Don't you remember in 1999, we were all day traders. Everybody was day trading tech stocks, and we thought we were geniuses. We were making a fortune. And so I thought, and we had, and for us, when we were starting this company, we didn't have a budget because we knew the brokerage we were working with was not going to pay us. It was just that kind of guy he was. And so I wanted to come up with a mnemonic device. I always remembered things through mnemonic devices. My wife is Bo Derek Michael Jordan, 1023. That's her birthday. And so I thought, okay, what type of mnemonic device can we come up with? And with the @ I was like, I just gotten an email address. It's 1999. I'm like, if they can think about us every time they hit this number 2 on their keyboard, that's going to think in their brain, they're going to think of Thad when they hit number 2. And so I said, okay, let's use the @ And then we just figured out kind of what first it was at home. We couldn't trademark it. And so it became at properties, which ended up being pretty good. But to remind you guys back then, remember when you needed a phone number, you called directory assistance 411?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people called 411 and said, may I have the phone number for at properties? Nobody. Get the phone number because they'd say the ampersand, and that would be the and sign. And then they would say the sign above the number 2. Well, we can't look for a phone number that way. So it seems great now, but back then it did have some challenges. They thought we were a online company, not a traditional brokerage. So it's cool now, but it didn't come without some warts.
As a marketing guy, Thad, one of the things that I appreciate a lot is obviously your view of, I think, just the disruption you've been able to do with right, and always thinking ahead to what is next. But one of the other pieces that I kind of read a lot around was the importance of this love campaign for you guys, and bringing the heart to an ecosystem where relationships are everything. Talk a little bit about what that was for you, and kind of what the campaign did in terms of where you are now.
Yeah, it's funny because it goes back a long time. So my dad was my best friend. He was also a psychologist. And anytime for him, it was all about love. There was nothing more powerful than love. And we were in a meeting and I said, I really want to come up with a campaign, something universal that everybody will love, something simple. It's almost like a dot on the paper that you're not distracted by a lot of things, but people have got to love it. And I was like, great. So I wrote love on the board. And then I knew of an artist that was very popular in Chicago, Matthew Hoffman. He came up with a saying that life is beautiful. You are beautiful, all sorts of things. And you see him all over Chicago. And so I paid him to paint the word love on a garage door in Bucktown, kind of a cool, hip neighborhood. And it started becoming a really trending as a hotspot for people to get a photo in front of, right? So you'd see love all over social media. We put in a billboards, t-shirts, hoodies. We got magnets on the back of cards. Luckily, I bought that font and word from him and trademarked it. And it ended up being probably the best campaign that we've ever done. It's never ended. It's still alive. You see it thousands of times if you're aware in Chicago throughout the day. Not the other day, but it's on thousands of cars. It's everywhere. And it's the best thing we've ever done because it brought to the community something that everybody longs for, which is love. And it tied the company at properties. At is not even on the word love, but everybody knows when they see that word love in that font that that's at properties. And so it accomplished more from a marketing perspective than all of our other campaigns combined. And it's possible to quantify how much business we've gotten from like that. It's not like you're measuring clicks or eyeballs online. But I'll have to say that I'll give that credit for so much of our growth, so much of our culture, our credibility, the internal workings of which makes it really sticky. And it's our commitment to that campaign of love and love altruistically as a culture, which I think keeps a lot of people here and has allowed us to grow in the face of lots of challenges.
Sure.
Thad, where do you see, going back to technology, where do you see the future of technology going? Right? We see a lot of video campaigns and all kinds of, ways to promote property out there on the web. Where do you see this going?
Well, I think that, if you say like 5 years from now, one thing that I think will be pretty cool is, you have nice Matterport tours or Real Vision tours, the tours where you can walk through on your screen. I do think that it will be possible, maybe it's not 5 years, maybe it's 8, that every house will have a virtual walkthrough with a headset, whether it's stored, in the cloud or if it's, planted in a metaverse gallery with houses in a neighborhood, but we'll be able to virtually walk through our listings at a much more realistic perspective than it is today. Now, do I think that's going to increase in sales or anything else? No. I think that people are still going to always need to touch and feel a house. We are going to see more people buying houses they've never seen before physically. But I think that will be probably the coolest thing, is just how we evolve through search, right? Search, we used to own search, right? We owned all the data. We gave up that data. It went through syndicated sites. Now they fight to how to present that data to maintain the greatest amount of time on site. And so they're coming up with innovations. But I think the brokerages are going to have to come up with a lot of these solutions too. And I think that will be a big part of that conversation. The technology part, the other side, is the consumer, right? Every consumer wants to be able to close their transaction on their home, the mortgage, the title, everything. So I do think that's where we're heading. Platform has milestones. That's the first phase of the consumer facing side of platform. That'll evolve into selecting the mortgage broker and the title company, and everything from our platform will be uploaded onto that. And our goal is to make it sure that a homeowner can close their house within a few years on their cell phone, and we won't have to deal with a lot of things. Now, there's a lot of state regulation, remote closings, all that sort of stuff that we'll have to get through. But I think that piece of it is, you have to, one thing a lot of brokerages did wrong, I think, in the last 5 years, they said, okay, how do we give the agent as much money as humanly possible to get them over, and marketing dollars to get them to us? And they got some to them. But what they didn't focus on is, I honestly believe you have to always be focusing on improving the experience of the end consumer. And the distribution channel is the agent. And the agent will be with the company that gives them the greatest value, that is seen in the eyes of the consumer. So the agent, even if the agent go to EXP or Keller Williams or one of the cap models, and theoretically make more money if they actually sell more real estate, but they won't be given all the tools that we're giving them, because those companies, they're going to have to pay for it, right? And so I do believe that the agent, if you give them something that the end consumer will see as incredibly valuable, that's how we give our value to the agent. But it has to be focused on the end consumer, because at the end of the day, a really good agent, that's all they care about. They care about providing the buyer seller of their client base the best experience in the market, to buy the best house or sell the best house at the best price, the higher or lower, and have the best experience even after they move. And what his goal is to try to figure out, how do we make the real estate agent actually more valuable after the transaction than during the transaction, so it can have more referrals, more repeat use, etc. And all of remaining valuable after the transaction has everything to do with things that can benefit the consumer. Obvious one is lowering the cost of home ownership, contesting your taxes, reducing the cost of electricity and gas, all those sorts of things. But then it'll go all the way into other resources and opportunities like travel or access. So I think the agent is really so powerful, because they develop such a close relationship with the agent or with the customer, and the agent want to be paid for all these small things. The agent is altruistic. They say, I want to provide my customer with the best life experience, and I want credit for that, so that they rely on me for what I'm good at, which is helping buy and sell real estate. That's how I make my money. But the agent has to continuously provide value in lots of different ways, so they can remain relevant post-transaction.
So good.
That's great, Thad. Thad, I want to talk about Christie's International Real Estate. You're now co-CEO of this iconic brand that, the partnership purchased last year. And from our standpoint, being an independent real estate company in Atlanta, Georgia, y'all being an independent company in Illinois, the largest, brokerage in Illinois. Now we've got a global brand with Christie's that are behind both of our names: Ansley Real Estate, Christie's International; At Properties, Christie's International. How many affiliates are there out there, and how has this changed just being an independent brokerage in these cities across the country and across the world? It's just such a huge thing, and it's been a huge thing for us at Ansley. We have taken in, over 100 agents so far this year, new agents that have joined Ansley. A lot of it because of this great global reach that we now have through Christie's. So I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about Christie's International Real Estate in the future with that?
Yeah, and I mean, good comparison is in Atlanta. You know, your number one competitor by average price, and I think you're a little bit higher, is Sotheby's. But I've seen your listing presentation, your culture, your office, your signage, and the bottom line is just better in every category. So really what they're riding on in a lot of cases is brand, right? You can't underestimate that extrinsic, non-quantifiable value of brand. You know, if you drive a Mercedes as opposed to a Ford, if you wear a Rolex as opposed to a Seiko, we spend irrational amounts of money on brands every day, right? Everything from wherever you shop, whatever you buy, wherever grocery store you go to, we are influenced by brand. And if you don't think that the consumer at the end of the day is influenced by brand, every agent I know wants to say it's only about me, period, nothing else. It is a lot about the agent. It is primarily about the agent, okay? But there is also a component of brand credibility. You can walk around anywhere in the world and say, I'm with Christie's International Real Estate, and that seller thinks luxury. Why? There's a multi-billion-dollar company that sells the most luxurious goods in the world for almost 200 plus years in the world. And so that's what I put you. If I go to Atlanta and I say I'm with At Properties, what? If Bonneau comes to Chicago and says I'm with Ansley, what? There's only two brands that you can wrap around the world and say that you're within luxury that are consequential in real estate, and that's Christie's and Sotheby's, period. So there is an extrinsic value that, and I firmly believe a home's value can be determined by its presentation, not just online, but the signage, the agent, everything. You could take a home and have very different prices at the end of the day, depending on the professionalism and the image of that house. So to say that the image of Christie's International Real Estate doesn't enhance a sale purchase would be crazy, because that is one of the best, most powerful brands you can put in front of a house. And we know that people pay more for great brands. So that what it elevates for us at Properties in Chicago, yes, we have the highest market share. We're number one in luxury. Our market share, our closest competitor is half our size, but in luxury, we got people neck and neck. So my goal with Christie's is really to expand that luxury and even increase further our average sales price, because there are some people that listed with Sotheby's just because it was Sotheby's,
right?
Just because of the international, just because of the status around it, right? And so now we have that status symbol. And then what we're doing for the companies that are Christie's that we were around before we bought them is we're actually bringing things of value beyond brand, right? They had the brand, and the brand is so powerful that you have people around the country paying 5-6% of their gross sale just for that brand, just to use that logo. They had a couple of things that they had a CRM, but it wasn't really that great. They had some content. It was okay. But what we're doing is actually taking all of the content, all of the intellectual expertise and technology and marketing power that drove partnered with Ansley. And we're saying, okay, call this the Ferrari platform, is the humming sound of Ferrari. It's just that sound. Close your eyes and the car is at the red light, and Ferrari, it's the best car engine around. You hear it, you know it, it's awesome. But when you wrap that engine in At Properties and you drive it to Sacramento, it looks like Kia. Or if you take Ansley and that engine and you open your eyes and you're in Chicago, you're like Buick. It doesn't, nobody knows our brands. But when you wrap that engine with Christie's International Real Estate, it takes the Ferrari body, the elegant, you can't find a year where Ferrari was ugly, ever. You take that beautiful car body, it goes on top of the beautiful technology and marketing and infrastructure, the engine that drives the brokerage. We can drive it around the world, and you can't compete against it. So it will just have to do with scale, our ability to scale the technology. Most of that is North America. Really hard to scale our tech internationally. You can provide a CRM. Most of the international value will be around marketing and content. That's the other piece of it, is that in all of our studies, the eyeball on an Hermes, Paul Newman Rolex, wine, anything that Christie sells, a Basquiat, all the way to a Beeple, is that when people see it online and that content, they spend a lot more time and they go deeper than when they go on social media and see an agent posted just listed. They'll look at it, whatever, but they expect to see that. They don't expect to see the history of Gucci leather. But that's the kind of content that the auction house comes up with to keep people on that site, which is A+ content. And we're airlifting and integrating with the auction house to use that exact same content to give to our clients so they can have interest and more time on our site. Because the partnership with the auction house and us is the auction house says to us, they say, okay, we're betting on you guys. We're betting on you that you can grow faster than anybody else to come into contact with more people that are likely to be our customers, which are homeowners, not only in North America, but around the globe. We'll give you our content. We'll give you our brand. You give us your technology, your marketing, your understanding of real estate, your understanding of culture when it comes to real estate brokerage, and help us scale that. And as you grow, we grow. And so it's very much a close partnership with the Christie's auction house and Christie's International Real Estate.
That's fantastic. Thad, one final question. You see a lot of agents, you mentor a lot of agents, you teach a lot of agents. Heck, Emily, your wife, is a huge agent in Chicago. What are the traits you see that are so important for our listeners that they need to have huge success in this business?
I think the number one is integrity. And these are the things that are part of you. When a person has true integrity, honesty, also, compassion, high EQ, or if they don't naturally have high EQ, they find to figure out, how do I get that? But once you have core integrity, you usually feel pretty good about yourself, right? You have a positive mental attitude. You like yourself. You're a good person. And so you have all of those things. Now you can do the fundamental things that help you become a better real estate agent. Understand your market, okay? Know what you are talking about. Understand the art of the contract and all the things that help you build confidence in the overall industry. And then you work on your EQ side of it, on how to be an attractive person to the consumer. A lot of that revolves around listening, right? And expressing yourself in a way that's attractive. And really, Bonneau, you were born like that. I was born like that. I've always said I don't take any credit for anything that I sell. It was just something that I was born with. I couldn't do a lot of other things right, but I could sell anything to anybody, anytime. And I knew if it hit the fan and I just sell refrigerators or watches, I'd be the number one refrigerator or the number one watch guy. But so that I don't take a lot of credit for. But I did take a lot of credit for understanding the market. So there was actually a lot of substance behind the sizzle. Sure. And that piece of it for an agent, I would make sure that they really have high integrity, because you're working with people on the biggest purchase or the biggest sale of their life, third most stressful thing in their life. It's serious, and you need to be a serious person. And then understanding and really feeling good that you're the best in the business, because substantially you have the best education, because none of it in real estate, probably why I got into real estate, nothing was complicated. I could understand everything by only reading it once, never in biology. In real estate, I never had to read anything twice. Even the riparian right stuff, that was easy. I just had to read a lot, and I had to study a lot, so that if I knew I was competing against somebody else, nobody else would know more than me. And that just takes time. But if you give it that commitment, and then once you know as much, if not more, than everybody else, and you like yourself, and you know how to get people like you become unstoppable. And as long as you're not infected by any virus, you'll be good to go forever.
So good.
That was incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for your time this afternoon. That was phenomenal.
So good, Thad. Thank you.
I'm Bonneau Ansley.
And I'm Christie.
We're brokering billions. Thanks a lot.